Okay, so welcome. We are doing our Mississaugua Method first ever virtual session. So we've got Adrienne on the call here, and we're joined by the Director of Instruction at Toronto Golf and Country Club, Andrew Lovell. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I know we've sort of talked about this on and off for a little while, so nice to finally be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the idea for this podcast is we're really just trying to talk to our membership about all things golf and golf instruction. So, we're trying to have guests on that are kind of in various areas of golf instruction, and you would be, one of those people who, similar to me, you work at, private club. You teach all kinds, I'm sure. So we're really happy to have your perspectives on a few different things.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably very, very similar in that, most of our time is spent helping our members play better and similar challenges, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Adrienne, you got some questions for Andrew queued up?
Yeah. It's going to sound not repetitive, but just being, a director and getting to know you for our membership and for us, I guess. Do you want to just start off just by basically explaining how you got into the industry and the steps you kind of took to get to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I got going a little later than most with golf. I played a bit as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
kind of for fun. My dad was actually a golf professional. He left the industry, so he would have loved for me to have played a lot more golf when I was younger. But I just, as a kid, I liked some other sports and played casually. We were fortunate that we had enough space I could hit balls around our yard. And then when I wrapped up in high school, I finished kind of a semester early. I had a semester off. I started working at a golf course. My dad built a driving range
Nice.
at our house, so I had an opportunity to hit a lot of balls and play a lot of golf. And it was one of those moments where my dad could have said, "I told you so," but he didn't. And I got the bug just like all of us. So I played a ton. Working in a bag shop, played a lot of golf, got relatively good. I mean, got down to a single digit fairly quickly, and then sort of just struggled to get better. And
Yeah.
like all of us do, I sought out some instruction, and I saw a few different people, and I kind of got a little better, a little worse, a little better, a little worse. But I kind of found it was like, it was a little confusing at that point for me. I wasn't really sure. I was getting a lot of different messages, and so that sort of spurred on, being a little more involved on the teaching side. So that was really the start of it. And then, like all of us, I went through. I was an assistant pro at a few different clubs, and was a head pro for a little while, and then went back to being an associate pro at a private club where it was up at Mad River, and there was a big focus on teaching there. So it just kind of evolved to the point where all I was doing there was teaching, and then the opportunity here arose, and with the academy being built here, it was hard to not want to make the move here. So that's how I landed here.
Nice. Love that.
Yes.
Love
Mad River has
you're good.
a ton of juniors, right? Like, is a big junior program up there?
Yeah. I think I was pretty fortunate when I was there to be kind of part of that. We had a big junior camp program. So we had like weekly camps all summer, and they were well attended. They were very popular. But one of the things we kind of struggled with was how to move the juniors there from campers to golfers, right? To have them playing regularly. So we evolved that into we had a summer and winter program where it was kind of a once a week. And, as you know, you get a group of kids who have time and like to be at the golf course together. They get pretty good pretty fast, right? I think, I used to laugh because the members there thought it was a pretty immersive program because the kids were out on the range all the time. But in reality, we spent an hour with them once a week, and then they just kept showing up and practicing and playing. And it's grown. And Ryan, who's there now, has done a great job with it. So the nice thing there is that that everyone was there every weekend. You knew where they were going to be. They were at the club, so we could build a program around that. But it was a lot of fun, and it's a fun opportunity when you have a group of kids that want to be playing golf and play to golf together a lot, because they really don't need a lot other than some direction, and their passion kind of helps them all get better. They motivate each other.
Yeah, it's that kind of setting the culture type thing, right? You get a few kids, doing the right stuff, and then the rest come along, and before you know it, you've got a good little program, right?
Yeah, it was more about building an environment for them than it was for really teaching and coaching them, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, I love that. So just kind of going into the next question more on teaching and player development. What would you, when you do teach each individual golfer, everybody has, their tendencies and common mistakes that they make, but what is your model or one philosophy that you try to use for each player? Obviously, it'd be different for everybody, but is there like a
Yeah.
direct you take?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, it's different. I mean, one of the people that's had a huge influence on me is Dr. Mark Bull, and I've spent a lot of time with Mark over the years. But when we first met, one of the things he said that's really resonated with me was, he was referring specifically to when he's working with his 3D system, but I think in general, he looks at everyone as a case study of one, right? And I think I've always tried to sort of use that as kind of the thing I work with the most is just thinking that everybody's unique. Everyone's a case study of one. So what I just did with someone else or what I just saw somewhere, I can't always apply that.
Hmm.
So I think, I think often things are about technique, and that's why we spend a lot of time. So if we're thinking in that realm of working on golf swings, then I generally try to let the what the ball does kind of guide me. How does the club influence the ball? Why is the ball doing what it does?
Right.
What are the patterns there? What are we seeing? And then how can we improve that and kind of try to work backwards from there? But I think, that's an important part, but it would be like going to school and only learning math.
Right.
That's just one piece of the puzzle. So trying to be, in the role we have a lot of different hats to wear. So working a little bit on kind of the mental performance side and sort of, course strategy. I think there's huge opportunities for people there. Being a little bit aware of the physical side, how that influences it, even equipment,
Hmm.
So trying to look at it a little more, the whole system and understand where's the low hanging fruit initially, where can people get better? It's a tricky time for us, right? Because there's so much information. I think the people we work with have access to more information than they ever have,
For sure.
but often it doesn't necessarily pertain to them or the things they're seeing online may or may not help. It's probably great information. It's just whether it's good information for you. So,
Hmm.
I think I spend a lot of time trying to, just put people's attention in a useful place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, right? Like, how do you tell someone like, "Hey, there's tons of technology and there's tons of information, at your fingertips, but what you're looking at may not be the most beneficial," without being like, "Please stop doing that."
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because naturally we're drawn to new things, right?
Of
So,
course.
so when someone's been telling you kind of a similar version of the same thing over and over, and now you see something new, we're kind of drawn to that. We're always sort of drawn to what's next. Okay, yeah, I did that for 2 days. Now what? And
Yeah.
um, golf. It's not like anything. It's like a lot of other things. If I decide I'm going to go out and work on my fitness, I can't do it for 2 days and think that I'm
Right.
good, right? So, um, it's sort of consistently doing the things you need to do, and sometimes they can feel a little monotonous. So, try to find ways to make things feel a little different and varied, even you're probably going to work on the same thing for quite a while. That's kind of the challenge, isn't it? I mean,
For sure.
nobody likes to hear the same thing over and over, but
Yeah.
I find lately I've started or I've stopped telling people to stay off YouTube and Instagram, and it's more like now I'm curating what they should go and look at, right? It's like I know you're going to look at stuff, so it's like, hey, maybe look at these accounts that are applicable to you or these videos, as opposed to you going off on your own in the wilderness and like looking at stuff, right? So if you
yeah,
can give them like some direction on, or like just filter out all the stuff and just have less for them to look at, and have it more applicable to them. I don't know.
yeah,
I've kind of
yeah,
stopped fighting it because they're going to do it, right? Certain people.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I guess the flip side of that is it's great that they're that engaged that they're going to go seek that stuff out. Although the way algorithms work on social media, it seems like it seeks you out these days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's. I mean, I look at stuff on Instagram. It's just being able to filter it and understand. Okay, does that actually pertain to me, or not really? And as you guys know, I mean, sometimes how we perceive things, how we see things. They might have the best information in the world, but the way one individual sort of receives that information and utilizes it, it might be completely unhelpful to them, even though in reality it's great information. But it's just back to that case study of one. We all do things differently. We all understand things differently, and that's the biggest challenge we run into is communication. When I first met Mark, back to Dr. Bull, we did some sessions where he has a 3D system and he can create biofeedback based on parameters for whatever you want to talk about, shoulders, hips, any kind of movement. And he can kind of create a bandwidth of, this is how we'd like it to move. If it moves outside of that, it's going to give you a tone. And one of the things he would do was set that up and have people just hit some shots and sort of play around with, okay, that's what I want to do. That's moving outside of it, and then ask them to tell them, what are you doing? What are you feeling? And I mean, some of the answers you'd get are things that you'd be like, you could have let me, for 10 years think about what that is, and I never would have come up with that. So, that's kind of the challenge, is how we perceive things. And then what makes it even harder is you might feel it that way today, but you can wake up tomorrow and be a completely different feel, or it's gone, right? So we've all experienced that, where you walk away from a day of playing golf or a practice session, think, "Oh, I got it. This is good." Yeah. And then 3 days later, you're thinking, "What happened?" But we change every day, right? So
you sleep and all of a sudden that same move doesn't work again, right?
Yeah. Then now we're back on YouTube, right? So
yeah, definitely.
So sorry,
okay.
Where does Dr. Bull where is he based out of?
He's over in the UK. Yeah, he's in. He comes over. He's got a bit of an education program. I was fortunate to meet him the first year I came here, and get to spend a fair bit of time with him. He's been a pretty big influence on me, just even philosophically. I think we align nicely. So yeah.
So where does he land, or I guess where do you land on kind of the markerless 3D systems like Sportsbox versus? I know his system is still like you got to strap into it and get all that. On you, right?
He had one actually for a little while. I mean, I used it a little bit. It was okay. I mean, I haven't spent enough time with all the markerless stuff. I mean, TrackMan just came out with one, and we use Swing Catalyst, and they've got they're moving towards that. I think in reality, like, we have a 3D system and it's great for certain things, but it's a bit time consuming. It's not always, helpful for a lot of players. I think the markerless stuff is getting more accurate. It's getting better. As I said, I haven't played around with it in a few years now. When it first came out, I wasn't always convinced by the data, but at the end of the day, if it's kind of consistently producing the values it produces, you can understand if things are changing, improving, then it's great. And one of the best uses I found for 3D is in actually helping people, with trying to improve things. It's when you're playing well, like come and get captures. So when things get off track, we kind of left some crumbs in the forest to go, oh yeah, remember when you used to do that? So because that's often what happens, right? We just lose the blueprint.
Right. We had Ryan Robillard on a couple weeks ago, and he said the exact same thing with the force plate stuff, right? He's like, when you're swinging good, get on the force plates and get your numbers, right?
And feel it.
Yeah, because it's always nice to go back and say, oh, hey, this is... and things like force plates in 3D, like sometimes the video is great, but sometimes some of that stuff is hard to see in a 2D image of a 3D event. And force plates the same thing. Like no matter how much you sort of watch people hit balls, there's really no way to be sure what's going on unless you measure it, right?
So with all that technology, you obviously have access at Toronto to a lot of tech. If you were, say, you're a 15 handicap coming in to see you for the first time, what does that first session with you look like? Are you, measuring? Are you getting them in 3D, or does it depend on the person and what they want?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend a little bit on the person and what they want. I mean, sometimes people come in for that first session and they have a very specific, something they're trying to fix, and they're maybe not going to be back several times, or there's something going on. So a bit of it's their session, not mine. So we'll use that to guide it. But if it's somebody who's coming in and we're going to try to get to work on something over time. The first session is usually a bit of a data capture just to have a baseline. So we'll get some different shots hit on TrackMan or Foresight and get their numbers there. Get a swing, a force plate capture done if we can, and which is pretty easy in our building, and then get a general sense on movement. So we might not go through like a full TPI screen, but at least sort of get a sense on kind of those big rotary hubs like the pelvis, the thorax, neck, shoulders, see what's going on there. And occasionally we'll do 3D depending on the person. Again, it takes a little more time, but we like to get kind of a general sense of who are you, what do you do. If time allows, sometimes get out on the golf course and see it too, because in a sterile environment like an academy, you're going to see one thing, but then you go out and you add in all those environmental factors, wind and slope, and sometimes you see something else. So, but generally, let's get a picture of what's generally going on here, where the opportunities lie, and kind of work from there. And usually, that's a discussion with the player to sort of figure out where we want to go. At the end of the day, it's more their decision than my decision how we're going to progress. But I like to present the options and kind of make some decisions together from there to get sure we're all on the same page and kind of buying in, right? Otherwise, it's always just going to be my stupid idea. So
we're the experts, though, so it's never a stupid idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So just going off of that, do you think it's more beneficial to have a lesson on course rather than the range? Assuming that the fundamentals and everything are there, right? That they're making the progression the right way instead of just staying on the range and just hitting ball after ball, like, okay, this looks good. Then you put it into perspective and now it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm probably the worst person to interview if you want a straight answer, because my answers always like it depends.
I love the
okay.
That's a sign of your intelligence, because there is never black and white, right?
Yeah.
Well, it depends, right? I mean, I would say this. I think learning on the golf course doesn't happen enough, for sure. But I also see a lot of value in spending some time on the range, depending on what you're up to. And I don't remember who said this to me years ago, but it made a lot of sense, was that if you think of every other sport, like, you practice the same place you play the sport, where in golf, we have a completely different environment where we practice. So I think spending more time on the golf course, and we're fortunate and unfortunate here with weather. We're fortunate that we have weather like this, which is a bit horrendous at the moment, where we're going to be inside playing golf if we don't go south. And that sort of presents a unique opportunity to work on maybe more of the technical stuff. So I'm finding more people kind of trending towards, hey, let's get some work done on my swing through the winter and on technique and some of that stuff. And then when we get into the golf season, there's a little bit of a shoulder season to transition. And then let's spend a little more time on, the performance side, the on-course stuff, even more building skill as opposed to technique through the season. It's one thing to have the technique, but then it's another thing to be able to access it when you need it. So, if it was up to me, I would do more of that, where let's do some technical work when you're not playing every day, when you can just hit balls into the screen. There's pros and cons to that, but certainly as a model, when we have the opportunity to spend time not playing and practicing, and then transition and time is the thing. So most of us don't have unlimited time to play golf. So if you have time, you probably want to play a little more than practice. So trying to build around that. And if you practice, let's practice on the golf course while it's available, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's for like a mental aspect. I think it's not easy, but there's this mindset of, I'm on the driving range and I've hit some really good shots. They're all really straight relative to my target or what I'm trying to work on. But put yourself on the golf course and you have a tree over there, you've got bunkers over there, you've got water, right? And your mind's just like, oh God, what did I just learn? Where did it go?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even I had a student I work with a little bit, who, for years he would come in and we'd spend a lot of time on TrackMan working on numbers and certain things he was looking for in his golf swing, and I was always kind of resistant, like, hey, we gotta go play golf. And then I realized, like, I don't really care if he plays golf. He's far more interested in just coming in and messing around with this stuff. So, sometimes you have to be careful not to, push your ideals on people. Like if they just want to come and work on some stuff and play around numbers and they enjoy that, it's not really that concerned about going out and shooting great scores. Well, that's up to them if that's what they enjoy doing. Which is a little counterintuitive for me because I would always look at it the other way. But then I realized that the individual just like they love doing that. So
I feel like sometimes you could even ask people like what they want, and they'll say, "I want to shoot lower scores," but what they really want is to get their pass zeroed out or something, right? Like they might tell you one thing, but like the reality is based on what they actually spend their time doing, they clearly want something else, right? Which is fine.
Yeah, for sure. It's everybody's a little different, and part of what we do is just trying to understand people, right? And I think understanding what they really want from it and being able to sort of set some expectations, because often I find what people want is what they want, and they want it right now, and it rarely works that way with golf, right? So just managing expectations and setting some parameters for what improvement looks like, and that's where technology can really help, because if you're tracking certain things, you can actually see it improving, and they may not be where they want to be yet, which in reality, we're never where we want to be, right? I want to be a 2. Well, when I get to 2, I'm going to want to be a 0. When I get there, I'm going to want to be a -2. But being able to track progress towards your goal and sort of be able to share what that's going to look like in terms of maybe some of the data you're going to see, that's really helpful to keep people on track, because otherwise you hit a few bad shots and then you're searching for another solution, right? Rather than understanding that, hey, most of it's going the right way. I'm changing this. Not quite there yet, but I think technology has really helped on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just like explaining that, progress is not linear, and there will be blips within the day, within the week, within the month, within the year, right? Like you're always going to have ups and downs. It's a game of dispersion, right? You can hit 27 irons and they're not all going to go perfect, but like as long as you're seeing a trend, then you can mark some improvement, right? And have a better headspace.
Yeah, I think like even on the indoor side, like the TrackMan uses that performance center now that actually gives you strokes gained relative to handicap. I found that to be just an awesome tool inside, because you can hit a bunch of approach shots and start to say, hey, how am I performing relative to my handicap or the handicap I want to be? And I think sort of seeing what that looks like sometimes is a bit surprising to people. We had a coach here a few years ago, Hugh Marr, came over, and he shared something that I thought was quite interesting in terms of dispersion. He said, his data would suggest that 5%. So if you want to be a functional tour player, your dispersion needs to be about 5% from your intended target. He dealt with carry. So if you're trying to carry a wedge 100 yards, it's got to be 5 yards any direction from that on average to be functional. If you wanted to be elite, you would get down to like 2.5 or 3%. I think he worked with Thorbjorn Olesen when he was on a real tear a few years back, and he could operate at about, he would have him tested going up in 5-yard increments. He could miss 3 times, going from I think he said 75 to like 220, and he could do it at about 2.5% with only 3 misses in there. So that's pretty impressive. But then if you think of that, so for a 10 handicap, well, if 5% is good for a tour player, a 10 handicap's probably creeping up closer to 10%, right? And so if you have a 10% variation off of 200 yards, you have 20 yards in any direction would be reasonable. And so sometimes, just even knowing that, I think most of us have such an expectation to hit everything online in the right distance, when in reality, that's just not what happens, right? There's an expected dispersion, whatever level you're at. So sometimes arming people with those tools just to know, hey, that actually, it's not right where you wanted to hit it, but that's a good shot for the level you're playing at. And then, within that, picking targets that make more sense, right? If you're operating at a 10% dispersion, there's a lot of pins you probably don't need to aim at. And even off the tee, understanding where a driver might be helpful and where it might not, just based on your dispersion. But there's a lot of different systems for that out there too that are really useful. You got Decade, you got all kinds of tools now.
Yeah, it's definitely changed.
Sorry, do you have a go-to stats app or shot tracking? I use Shot Pattern with some of my students, but like I've never found one that's super easy to input.
Mm,
You know, there's always going to be some legwork, and you're going to have to track stuff on course, right? Do you
yeah.
have one you like?
I mean, I use Arcos a little bit. It's the closest I've seen where people don't have to do too much because it just does it for you. I've
Yeah,
had limited success when it requires you to do any manual entry, be it on course or post round. I think, back to time, right? It's hard to hard to find the time, hard to get people to commit to do that. If you're trying to play golf for a living, you're going to do it, and a lot of
yeah,
times they're getting that data anyways. But no, I've used Arcos a little bit. I'm going to play around with UpGame because they have a system now that I think is going to integrate with TrackMan, so you'll actually be able to pull the data out of virtual golf, which might be interesting, and dispersions and what have you. But yeah, I'm still searching for the best solution for that. It's like I said, Arcos is pretty good. There's some investment there, and you have to be a little bit, tech savvy to make sure you understand how to use it. But that was good, and then it just kind of runs in the background, and it sort of keeps everything for you. But the data is so great. It's just getting the data to put in so you can understand it is always the challenge, I find.
yeah, yeah. I like Shot Pattern because it forces you to track your intended target as well, so you can see
Yeah,
dispersion from because if there's wind or you're missing one direction that day or something, you're gonna pick different targets, and then if you end up somewhere, was it your target or was it the shot you made or a bit of both, right? So like that's
yeah,
kind of why I want Shot Pattern to work, but it is a lot of it's all manual entry probably at the end of a round, right? So we'll see how it
yeah.
goes.
And it's hard to do it in round. I mean, I don't, we're sort of discouraging people to be on their cell phones, so then
Yeah,
you're going to give them an app that they're going to have to punch things in, and then I don't know. Sometimes I question what that does in terms of focus, but yeah, still searching, James. So if you find something, let me know.
well, even like with my, let's call them less committed players with who have jobs also.
Yep.
I'll just get them to track basic fairways, greens. Still those basic stats. If they can add in like the side they missed on or something, like there's still you can do a bunch on a scorecard still and plug it into a spreadsheet. If you wanted to do like a light version of stat tracking, I think it's still
Yeah.
valuable. Obviously, there's more value the more info you can put in, right? But you know, giving me something is better than giving me nothing, right? As a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you always ask people sort of about performance. And I think, that you get sort of anecdotal answers that sometimes are accurate and sometimes maybe not. And again, it's just back to understanding what does good look like with a driver? What does good look like with a wedge? What does good putting look like? So I think, the data certainly helps direct you into the right areas if we're dealing with performance and trying to score better. I mean, that's um, that's always I think expectation and reality don't align as well as they could there. And I mean that like putting, for example, every time we work in putting clinics or in groups, in terms of expectations, you look at that 8 foot putt, which is generally about a 50% make on tour right over the course of a year. That's kind of the you put a ball 8 feet from the hole and ask someone how many times, what percentage of those would you make, assuming there's not just the same putt 100 times, as a tour player. Over the course of the year, what percentage of those would you make? And, the numbers you get are pretty wild, right? It usually starts somewhere around 85% or so. Yeah, well, if you could do that, you'd be pretty good. Um, so just understanding that, and even that one I like to use is like it was. I haven't checked it recently, but it used to be about 33 feet was that sort of delineation between more one putts than three putts. So you go 11 paces from the hole and go like you're probably as a tour player gonna three putt here slightly more than you one putt, which it's not to say they do either very often, but there's a lot of two putts from there.
Yeah,
And people are always a bit surprised at that, right? But, you watch golf on Sunday, and you're rarely you're seeing the players that are are gaining strokes putting that week, right? They're usually in contention. They're usually, the ones winning are outperforming the field on the putting green. I think not too many people have gone. I think VJ's done it a few times where he's lost strokes to the field putting and won. But so I think sometimes that just understanding what good even looks like can be helpful to people. Because you see a lot of people getting upset or beating themselves up over shots that you think, you know what, that's actually not that different than what you should expect from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think though, like you'd probably have the most room to gain with most students on the putting green. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there's very few people who can't putt better. Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
It's that old Harvey Penick thing, right? Like everyone can putt. Not everyone can hit a 300-yard drive, but everyone can make an 8-footer. Obviously you're not going to make them all, but like everyone can make more of them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's that same logic of what club are you going to hit the most? Right. Well, you're gonna putt probably on every hole. Depending how generous your friends are with gimmies multiple times, right?
Yes,
it's true.
Yeah. I mean, I always laugh at that one because you see people struggle under pressure and they putt poorly. And people, yeah, you haven't made a 3-foot putt in 6 months that mattered, right? So all of a sudden it's got to go in the hole. It changes things a little bit. So
yeah,
no, I agree with you, James.
interesting.
I think you're right. Like certainly putting, in short game, right? I mean, when things go poorly with the rest of your game, if you can still, get it up and down a little more frequently or chip it closer and then putt it better, that's gonna help your scoring regardless of how well you're hitting it, right?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting though, like when you watch golf and they talk about like the guys who win tournaments, it's strokes gained tee to green, right? And it's like that. It's basically it's hitting greens and hitting it close to the hole, but that often is not. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like it's not very applicable to like the everyday golfer, right? Because it's so much harder to get better at those things. Whereas tour players are already incredible at ball striking, right?
Yeah, I think the baseline for putting and short game for those players is probably significantly higher too, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt distance it's helpful. I mean, all the statistics lean towards the closer you are to the hole, the easier it gets, regardless of rough or fairway. But and I don't disagree with that. But the putting, chip, and short game stuff can really save strokes quickly. And as you said, I mean, everyone can putt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. More info. More info is good. So it's we can share all of this, with memberships regardless of their skill level, right? Like not everything is going to be perfect, but if you have like a benchmark of something, and work towards it, that way you're not just out there practicing aimlessly and trying to just shoot a score. Like fill the gaps of where you need to work on first, right?
Oh, for sure. And like you said, like to James's point, I mean, the tour is they're just so good, and they're on a different level. And
different human, different breed.
Yeah, the distance is just that they hit it these days. We were fortunate. 2 summers ago, Michael Brennan, who won as the sponsors invite in Utah on the PGA Tour last fall, came out here while he was playing the Americas Tour. He actually wanted to see some swing catalyst data. So the guys there had called and said, "Hey, can he come hit some balls?" I didn't know too much about him at that point, but he couldn't hit driver on the range because it wasn't long enough. And we took him out on the golf course, and I mean, the places he was hitting driver off the back tees here were like it was. I mean, it's a different game, right? I mean, I don't know if you remember our 9th hole. There's the creek that's about 300 yards away, and he's 50 yards over that, and you're going,
wow.
Oh, yeah. I guess you could just do that.
Sure.
Like on a downwind day, I'm thinking, well, I might have to just not hit this hard because it might get to the creek, and that's not even a thought for them these days. They hit it so far, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, we had we had Jason Day out with the RBC guys before Canadian Open a few years ago, and I don't know if you know our 13th hole, but par 5, the credit running across, right, and it's a driver again to the end of the first side of the fairway, and I don't know what tees he was playing, but he ripped it over, landed it, probably had 150 into the green, right, like just things normal humans can't do, right? Yeah. Even I wanted to tell a story too. When you said about the short game baseline being so good, when we had the CPKC here in August, the women were around our chipping green, and it is busy, right? Like I think it was Thursday before tee times went out, right? So they're all hitting chip shots, and there's staff up on the green, pulling golf balls off constantly, right? And these women are ripping low spinny pitches, and they're hitting bunker shots, and around all the people on the green pulling golf balls off, they're not even worried about hitting them at all, right? Versus you're teaching a lesson and you've got someone 50 yards in the background of somebody chipping, and they're worried about thinning it over to their feet, right? To me, I knew they were good, but the ability to avoid the chaos that was going on in front of them and just hit their shots, and no fear of clipping one and smoking somebody at all. It was very impressive with all the chaos going on, right?
Yep.
It is very busy, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm kind of guessing, but it was wild just to see them hit these shots.
Yeah.
And just complete focus, getting locked in for their round. So.
Yeah, fun to watch, isn't it? Because we're fortunate to host them, and
definitely
very, very talented.
Yeah, I think it was eye-opening for a lot of my students and our members here too, right? Just to see the level that they're on.
Yeah.
It's impressive, very impressive.
Sure.
All right, I think we're maybe getting to the end here.
I think so, James. If you had any other questions.
No, I love picking your brain, Andrew. So appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, likewise, always great chatting with you guys, and so I hope it's a great season. And it feels pretty far away with all the snow at the moment, but we will get there. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the call.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate it.